name is Fungai Charumbira, and I'll be taking you through the Introduction to Taxation module for your CTA syllabus. I would like to give you a warm welcome as one of the representatives of the tax department. It's going to be an exciting year. You are in very good hands, and we trust your capabilities that you will be able to make it till the end of the year, and that you're going to pass with flying colors. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Fungai, and I am part of the tax department team. Allow me to just give you a brief introduction as to some of the people who are going to be taking care of you in your tax module this year. So our head of tax is Mr. Junotende Samapetere, a qualified chartered accountant. Also, you will be assisted by Philip Chambati. He is also one of the trainees in the tax department. And lastly, but definitely not least, myself, Fungai. For your 2019, the syllabus of your taxation modules is as follows. You're going to cover the administrative framework, value-added tax, gross income and general deductions, taxation of corporates, transfer pricing, employment income, withholding taxes, capital gains tax. You will also cover deceased estates and trusts. However, this is only for part of the level 2 and full-time syllabus, and the level 1 candidates will not be going through these. Double taxation agreements are also part of the level 2 and full-time module only. However, going forward, you also learn income accruing to partnerships, farming, as well as mining. You will find that these topics are preparing you to be a competent chartered accountant who will be able to assist in any transaction, any tax transaction in any sector. And also, if we look at our Zimbabwean economy, it is hinged on mining and farming, hence the need for us to learn these. The workflow, as per our methodology, as to what we believe in, there is a certain route that you need to follow, which will enable you to succeed in your studies. So firstly, you have to have the knowledge. So when I talk about the knowledge, tax is a legislation-based subject. Most of the things that we do are set in law. So this knowledge that I'm talking about is, for you to succeed, you have to know your legislation. You have to know what a certain section says about a certain transaction. That way, if you're going to prescribe something to a client, you know where you're getting your basis from. Even when you are dealing with the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, for example, and you have to justify yourself why you treated a certain transaction in a certain way, you will be backed by your legislation. So your legislation is your backbone. However, be careful. Do not claim this legislation. There are student handbooks that are available for you, which you will be able to enter into your exam. So because you are entering with it into the exam, there could be if I can call it, students might relax because they're entering with the legislation into the exam. But you need to think of this. How do you then know which section to apply it to a certain transaction? That means you need to internalize this legislation. Try to think like the Commissioner of Zimra himself. Why were certain laws enacted? That way it will help you to understand this legislation better. Next in our workflow is you have to make sure that when you're dealing with certain transactions, you understand the issue. So in this case, if you have a certain taxpayer We're having certain issues. As we go through the year, you're going to learn, as I stated earlier on in the syllabus, you're going to learn a vast varieties of topics. And in every topic, you might see a value-added tax problem, a CGT problem, an income tax problem. So as a student, you need to make sure that you have the skill to be able to zero in on where the issue is. So you can go to that particular legislation which deals with that issue, and you can advise accordingly or give a solution accordingly. Lastly, you need to be able to apply. So you will find that when we are doing examples in class, you're going to learn certain examples. There will be question banks, there will be questions that are there. There will be examples that you do in class. But the trick is not to do a lot of questions for you to test your knowledge. You have, like I said earlier, internalize your legislation. After you internalize your legislation, it will be easy for you to then apply to any given scenario. If you know your legislation, if Delta comes to you with a tax problem, then you will be able to apply the knowledge that you have to that transaction and be able to deal with it accordingly. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure every time you are dealing with a transaction, every time, even when you are studying, refer to this workflow. Do I have the knowledge to deal with this issue? Have I understood the issue? And am I able to apply not only to this current issue, but to even various issues from, which will be coming out from the same problem, if I may say. I'll just want to give you a bit of assistance as to how to study. As a former CTA student myself, I have had a bit of experience, and also as a lecturer for a few years now. We have seen some methods which work and some which don't. So firstly, follow the workflow. I cannot overemphasize this. The workflow is very important. In everything that you are studying, ask yourself, am I going with the flow of the workflow? Next, you need to be an interactive learner. So, for example, when you're in class, learn to participate. That way, you will learn easier and better. I'm sure you can agree with me that if you ask a question in class, if the lecturer gives you an answer, you will never forget that answer. You will even go back to that time and you can even correct your thought process. If you give a wrong answer, for example, it's because in your thought process there is somewhere where you diverted. But if the lecturer is there and he then assists you, you will then cement your thought process and you'll be destined for success. Also, when you're an interactive learner, you should be able to interact with other candidates, other students. Be involved in group discussions, for example. That can help you. Hearing things from a peer sometimes might make things clearer rather than hearing them from a lecturer. Hence, interactive learning is important. There are also those other people who like writing solo. So for example, you prefer to just take your books, go into the library, have your quiet time, and just study on. So if this works for you, then it's fine. So the most important thing is to know yourself. Know what works best for you. For example, there are some people, if you're in a group discussion, for example, you will find that you won't be contributing much. There might be just one person who is telling you the answers and stuff like that. And when you then try to apply that knowledge when you're on your own, you realize that you didn't learn anything. That means maybe you're not the best person for a group discussion. And then there are some people who just can't concentrate when they're on their own. That means you should be in a group. However, as the tax department, we recommend that you blend these two. Even if you're one person who likes the interactive learning or someone who likes riding solo, we suggest that you merge the two. That way you can have a balanced learning. Sometimes studying on your own is not very good, because sometimes you might go astray on your own, or sometimes there is a certain topic that is confusing you. In that case, you need the help of others. So this is our advice to you. There are certain points that we regard as the key contributors to success, not only for taxation, but generally for your CTA program. We encourage critical thinking. You need to be a critical thinker. Think outside the box. If you see a transaction, for example, think of all the elements around that transaction. What could go wrong? How can I fix this problem? There are some questions which will be underlying. Don't be just a read to pass person. Read to understand. Some of you are already employed at the moment, and some will be looking for employment after you finish your CTA. Think about it this way. The things that I am learning now during my studies, can I then go and apply them in a real life scenario? Not just one of those things we used to do in high school to cram, study, and just pass. In this case, you need to be a critical thinker, and that can only come when you have the knowledge, when you internalize all the concepts that are there. Second, and most important of all, you need to be consistent. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to hit the ground running. You can't say, I'll start next week, or I'll start 2 weeks later. You will be left behind already. Make sure you don't stay behind. If you're given homework to do before class, make sure you do it. Go with the flow. Go with the study plan. A study plan will be provided to you. Make sure you follow that, because this will assist you greatly. In this case, especially in this year 2019, especially for the level 2 students, you need to make sure that things have changed, because it's a new year and there are new things. So make sure you embrace any new methods that are there and you apply them to your day-to-day studying. Because as you know, we are just there to assist you. We are there to help you. And all we want is for you to succeed. So make sure you're consistent. If you do VAT, for example, and you are left behind, and we are now doing gross income, then when we are now doing gross income, you still have VAT in your mind, and that will hinder you from learning gross income, and you're just chasing and chasing and chasing, and trust me, you don't want that. And as I said before, with regards to the knowledge base, regards to the workflow, make sure you have a sound knowledge base. Make sure you have the knowledge. Practice makes perfect. If you have the knowledge and you then get scenarios, you can even get scenarios from a newspaper. If you see a tax issue in a newspaper, apply that knowledge as you practice. Contact sessions. Guys, attending lectures is very important. Like I said, we recommend interactive learning. Go to that lecture and hear what the lecturer has to say, because that lecturer knows something that you don't. So make sure you attend your lectures. Guys, make sure you make the time. I am literally begging you. Make sure at the very least you attend all your lectures. As I said before, when I was talking about consistency, you need to be consistent. You need to go with the flow. So you should stay ahead in terms of everything. Don't lag behind. If you're coming for a lecture, pre-read for that lecture. Practice the questions for that lecture. That way, it will be easier for you to understand. And lastly, but not least, tie your shoelaces. What do I mean by this? You are the one who is doing the CTA. You are the one who wants to become a chartered accountant. That means the onus is on you to do the work. Don't say, oh, I don't like Fungai, the way she teaches, so I won't go to class. Guys, the onus is on you. Everything is on you. No one else is going to do your work. Not your friends, not your group, not your mom or anyone. It is on you. You are responsible to tie your own shoelaces. So make sure, even after you have a group discussion, sit down with yourself and ask yourself, do I have the knowledge? Can I apply? And all these questions, because at the end of the day, it is on you. If you're in a group and they give you homework and work to do, make sure you do it. Don't lag the whole group behind. Like I said, tie your shoelaces. No one is gonna come with a whip to push you to do the things. It has to be internal. You have to tell yourself that I am now doing this and I am now going to pass this. And I am confident that all of you can make it. I just want to leave you with a quote. If you only do it once in a while, don't get mad when the results come once in a while. So basically, as I said, the onus is on you. You reap what you sow. You will plow what you want to reap. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it is on you. I know you can make it, and I trust you can make it. And if others did it, so can you. Thank you.